Today we will be going through 13 big mistakes that travelers make at the airport. These common mistakes can lead to a very uncomfortable flight as well as major consequences such as not being allowed to board the plane. The first big mistake that travelers make is going through security and then taking time to explore the airport before knowing exactly where their gate is. You might see gate 10 and then think that gate 11 is going to be right beside it. But airport layouts can be tricky, and this is not always the case. A gate that you think is just a minute away might actually require a shuttle bus ride or even going through an extra security screening or an immigration checkpoint. On my way home to Canada from Portugal, I almost missed a flight due to an unexpected immigration lineup. I hung out for hours in a lounge that was just a 5-minute walk from my gate, but I did not anticipate that there would be an immigration checkpoint with a long lineup before I was able to access my gate. I did make the flight, but it was tough, and that's a lot of unnecessary stress. Keep in mind that boarding for international flights often begins 60 minutes before departure and then typically closes 20 minutes before departure. Avoid the stress of running through terminals by knowing exactly where you need to be when it's time to board your flight. The second mistake that travelers make at the airport is getting too excited about the free samples of expensive perfumes and colognes at the duty-free stores. I used to do this all the time, but that was before I realized the consequences. Some scents are extremely potent, and just one spritz can make the flight uncomfortable, not just for you, but for others around you, especially if they have allergies. I once had an allergic reaction on a plane and ended up with hives all down my neck and across my chest simply because someone had a little bit too much cologne on, or perhaps it could have been due to the passenger before me that had their perfume or cologne residue on the seat that I was in. And you might just want to avoid the duty-free stores altogether, since another thing to avoid pre-flight is impulse buying travel accessories at the airport. Airport stands filled with neck pillows and other gadgets can be tempting, especially if you're gearing up for a long flight. But here's the thing. These items are usually marked up significantly, and there's a good chance that you won't use that last-minute purchase as much as you think. Many travelers, including myself, that have ever impulse bought a last-minute travel accessory at the airport, realize pretty quickly that they don't actually need them, and then you end up lugging this new accessory around with you for the rest of your trip. Many major airlines also have adjustable headrests that do a great job at supporting your head while you sleep, so I would never recommend buying or even bringing a neck pillow. While waiting for your flight to board, another big airport mistake would be heading to one of the airport spas for a cosmetic treatment. While a quick manicure or a wax might seem like a good idea before your vacation, the quality of services at airport spas can vary, and they may not use the same high-quality ingredients that you are accustomed to. A manicure done at the airport could look great initially, but it might not last, leaving you with chipped nails and no easy way to fix them since you don't have the polish that was used. On a similar note, waxing can be risky. The products used might be harsher than what your skin can tolerate, potentially leading to sun sensitivity or allergic reactions. The last thing that you want to deal with is irritated skin while confined in the dry air of an airplane cabin or upon arrival at a sunny destination. You will also want to be cautious if you plan to experiment with any new foods before your flight. Airports often have a lot of different food options, and it can be especially tempting if you're in a new country on a stop between flights and you want to try some local food. Proceed with caution. Your stomach might not agree with something new, and taking that risk right before a long flight is never a good idea. I once ate sugar-free gummy bears for the first time before a flight, and it was a disaster. Super uncomfortable, super embarrassing. So while it's tempting to explore all of the food options, it's better to stick to foods that you know aren't going to cause you any trouble. In addition to the foods that you eat, it's also important to be mindful of the alcohol that you consume before a flight. Alcohol can have a significantly stronger impact in the air due to the different air pressure in the plane's cabin. This means that the effects of what you consume before your flight could be much more intense than what you would expect once you get up in the air. It's a similar situation with caffeine, which can also affect you differently at higher altitudes. It's also good to know that if an airline staff member thinks you've had one too many drinks, they might not even let you board the flight. I've personally been surprised by how much a single glass of wine affects me when I'm up in the air during a flight as opposed to when I'm on the ground. I would be curious to know down in the comments if you have had a similar experience. Also, let us know what your drink of choice on the plane is. I typically opt for water and the occasional glass of red wine. I'm absolutely wild. I know. While waiting for your flight at the airport, you might also consider using the currency exchange counters. Don't. You may feel like you're preparing well by exchanging money in advance, but you'll likely lose out due to the poor exchange rates. A more efficient alternative is to withdraw local currency from an ATM once you arrive at your destination using your debit card. There is still a fee involved when you use an ATM, but it's generally much lower than what you would see at an airport exchange counter. The next thing to never do when waiting for your flight would be to connect to the free airport Wi-Fi, at least not without first protecting your device with a VPN. It's tempting to use the airport's Wi-Fi, whether it's to pass time or to download shows on Netflix for your flight. However, it's much safer to download necessary content before you reach the airport or to use your own data plan instead of the public Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi networks, especially at airports, are often targeted by hackers looking to access sensitive information like passwords and credit card numbers. If you must connect to the airport Wi-Fi, a safe way to do this is by using a VPN on your device, which is going to encrypt your online activity and keep your personal information safe. A VPN is an absolute travel must-have in my opinion, and it's not too bad on your wallet either when you're only paying a couple of dollars a month. I'll include more information in the video description as well as a link to get a huge discount on the VPN that I personally use. Something else that we should never do while waiting to board a flight would be running down the battery on our devices. Boarding your flight with a fully charged device is essential, not just for in-flight entertainment, but also for practical reasons post-flight. Upon arrival, you might need to show booking confirmations and other travel details at immigration, and these details are often stored in your email and accessible on your phone. Many airlines, including Delta, also allow passengers to use messaging apps like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger free of charge during the flight. This is a great way to stay connected without paying for a Wi-Fi package, but it's only going to be useful if your device has power. The USB charging slot at your plane seat may also be out of order and is not something to rely on. And here is a little tip if you do find yourself boarding a flight with an uncharged device. As soon as you get onto the plane, check down by your feet between the seats for a power outlet. These are limited since there's often only going to be 2 power outlets in a configuration of 3 seats. So grabbing one early on, as soon as you get on the plane, is key to ensuring that you will have a power slot to use. Something else that you should never do at the airport is leave your belongings unattended. Whether you are stepping away to use the washroom or to fill up your water bottle, don't use items to save your seat or leave your device plugged in to keep your spot at a charging station. It's always safer to carry your belongings with you. If you do happen to be traveling with someone, you can ask them to watch your items while you are away, but make sure you never ask a stranger. Leaving items unattended not only puts you at risk of theft, but it's also typically against airport regulations and can get you into quite a bit of trouble. You also don't want to be a seat hog, especially as the flight's departure time approaches. Each person is entitled to just one seat, and your bag, jacket, or laptop case doesn't count as a person needing its own seat. And if you start noticing other passengers wandering around in search of a seat, don't wait for someone to have to ask you to move your things. Or wait for them to have to ask you to get your feet off the seat so they can sit down. Even if it is not busy, it is never okay for you to put your feet on the seat. Thank you. Deciding to wait until you get onto the plane to change into more comfortable clothes or to remove any of your makeup is another mistake that travelers make before a flight. Those airplane bathrooms are tiny and often busy, making it a hassle to change clothes and remove any makeup. So if you have dressed up a bit for the security screening or simply to look nice at the airport, consider changing into something more comfortable like sweatpants and removing your makeup before you board the flight. You may also want to swap your contacts for glasses, as contacts can become uncomfortable in dry cabin air during a flight. The next big mistake that travelers make at the airport is not being prepared to board the flight when their zone is called. Airlines often board passengers in designated groups or zones, and it's essential to be aware of your boarding zone, which is typically indicated on your mobile or printed flight ticket. There's an unflattering term in the travel industry known as gate lice. Gate lice is a term used to describe passengers who crowd around the gate before their boarding zone is called. Avoid this, and also don't attempt to sneak into an earlier boarding zone, as it holds up the process and usually just leads to you being sent to the back of the line, which is not where you want to be. But as soon as your boarding zone is called, you will want to move quickly with your ID and your boarding pass in hand. The reason for the rush is that while you may have an assigned seat, the overhead bin space is not reserved and it operates on a first-come, first-served basis. Keep an eye on passengers ahead of you, and if you notice that their carry-on bags are being checked, there is a good chance that yours is going to be checked as well. Airlines forcing passengers to check carry-on bags at the gate is very common since flights are full and there simply isn't enough space for every passenger's carry-on suitcase. I'll put a video on the screen now that is going to walk you through all of the airline rules regarding overhead bin space. I also share some sneaky secrets to maximize your chances of getting overhead bin space every time you fly. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join us back here for weekly travel tips and hacks, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Thank you so much for watching and safe travels. Bye.